It's part of centuries-old Lincoln lore, the story of young Abraham striking out on his own just 22 years of age, arriving in Illinois by flatboat, floating up the Sangamon River to the place he'd call home from 1831 to 1837, the frontier village of New Salem. But experts say that's where the trail becomes hard to follow.
The time that Lincoln spent in New Salem is very poorly documented. And he's 22, 23, 24 years old at the time. So he's a young man who's active in a lot of things. The old chestnuts about Lincoln here, which are based primarily on oral traditions and folklore, tend to portray him as somewhat of a drifter.
Historical archaeologist and documentary filmmaker Robert Masrum says it's part of the Lincoln canon, the tale of the young vagabond with no place of his own, at first sleeping in the back of the general store or wherever he could rest his head. But in 1995, the Illinois state historian made a startling discovery, uncovering an 1835 sheriff's sale document that seemed to indicate Lincoln owned property.
That was kind of a bombshell because for about 75 years, visitors to New Salem have been told that Lincoln didn't own property in town.
To help confirm the new find, researchers studied old documents to pinpoint the exact location and character of the location. Then Masrum directed a dig at the New Salem State Historic Site. After several seasons of painstaking work, the archaeological team uncovered clues about Lincoln's historic property.
What we uncovered were parts of the original pit cellar that would have been underneath Offutt's store that had some storekeeping debris, bits of broken dishes, a pencil that would have been used by storekeepers here, buttons, a fish hook.
Masrum's work helped solidify the emerging view on Lincoln in New Salem, and the end result is a new, more complex picture of the future president, much more than an aimless drifter struggling to find his way, trying his hand at various occupations.
What we're learning more and more is that it's just more and more complicated. He wasn't just a store clerk, and he wasn't just renting. He was actually paying off debts and acquiring property and getting very involved in the community. So he was more invested here than we originally thought. When you look at what he was actually doing, he was very busy and he was very ambitious. He was getting in with people who had money and who had a little bit of power locally.
Ambition that was there from the beginning, driving the young man to make something of himself, a new wrinkle in the old story that to scholars like Masrum makes the rise of Abraham Lincoln all the more interesting.
The minute you start to see him as a real guy, his achievements start to mean something more.
Crusin, Illinois at Lincoln's New Salem. Julian Cruz, WGN News.